There's a specific order on how you save and invest money. And if you get it wrong, it could cost you unnecessary taxes, penalties, and interest. So in this video, I'm going to show you specific accounts to invest in first, so you can avoid making the mistakes many other people make. First off, if you're watching this video, it's likely that you're saving money, and that is the number one thing. So many people fail to save any money at all and they live paycheck to paycheck. But once you do what you're doing, then you're thinking about how to properly allocate the money, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So the first account is the emergency fund, otherwise called the cash account. How much cash should you have in your cash account? You want to have anywhere between 3 months and 2 years worth of cash. Why the big disparity? Well, it depends on what type of job you have, and if you're retired or not, and if your income is volatile. If you're working at as a government employee or some other very, very secure job, maybe you could get by with having 3 months worth of emergency cash. And what I mean by emergency cash is the expenses you have per month times 3 or times 5 or times 2 years or 24 months. Okay. Now, if you're a retiree, I would recommend you having at least 12 months worth of cash, and that is due to having a cash buffer for healthcare expenses, market downturns, and things like that. And we go over that in another video. So how are you going to fill up this cash account? Well, you take your income, because you're doing very well, right? And you have extra money left over after your monthly expenses, and you put those in the cash account. Let's just pretend that's only 6 months. When I say the word 6 months, what that means is 6 months of living expenses. After you have your money market account set up with the adequate amount of money, then any money you have over and above that, and if you have a 401k, that's where it should go. Now, a 401k is a retirement account typically at your work, and many 401ks have the match, and that's what we're going to focus on today. A 401k match is when you put some of your money in, the employer matches you. Sometimes that could be 100% of what you put in up to a certain dollar amount. So if you imagine taking some of your income and putting it in your 401k, magically your employer pours in his portion, doubling your account value. That's free money, is getting the 401k matches. Now, you may have a simple IRA and there could be a match there too. That's absolutely free money, and that's what I want us to focus on in this particular cup. So after you get the 401k match and maybe get either a 50% match or 100% match on your 401k, you may be able to put more in that, but don't do that yet. The next step on how you allocate money would be credit card debt. Now, you probably don't have any because you're smart, but if you did, credit card interest can be as high as 24%, which is crazy. And so, remember, a penny saved is a penny earned. Well, a penny paid is a penny lost. So paying off the credit card debt at high interest rates is the equivalent of saving that amount of money in interest. So you want to use the income to pay off those credit cards. After you have your credit cards paid off, now if you qualify for the HSA, the Health Savings Account, it is a unique account earmarked for healthcare expenses and is triple tax benefit, meaning that you get a tax deduction for the money you put in, it can grow tax-free, and comes out for medical expenses. Now, many people use this account wrong. What they do is they put the money in and they go to CVS or they go to the doctor and immediately take the money back out. You're missing the growth, the tax-free growth of this account. The way to really do it is Put the money in that health savings account, invest the money like you would in your IRA or 401k, let it grow, pay your medical expenses out of pocket, and then you can use this HSA for future medical expenses down the road. Now, what you need to do is save your medical receipts. A lot of times what I do is I take my trusty iPhone and take a picture of it and save it in a specific photo folder so it'll never go away and it's backed up on the cloud. Now, one thing to note about an HSA, you need to qualify for a health savings account. And to do that, you have to have a high deductible healthcare plan. So if you have an employer, ask them if you have a high deductible healthcare plan that qualifies you for a health savings account. Let's go back to the 401k. Remember how we put enough in for the match? After you have all of these things in order, now you can go back and put in the 401k maximum amount that you can put in. The maximum amount you can put in a 401k in 2025, if you're under 50, is $23,500. Now you can put in an extra $7,500 if you're over to age 50. I turned 50 a year and a half ago. Raise your glass to another year. And if you're over 60 years old, there's a special catch-up contribution that you can put in an extra $11,250. So let's say, for instance, you get all of it set up and you maxed out your 401k. The next step would be other loans you may have. Now, if you have low interest loans, let's say sometimes it's a car loan, sometimes it might be your home loan, you can choose to pay those off. However, if you have your investments set up in a way that maybe on average gets a little bit more return than the interest you pay, you can choose to not pay these off. All right? But I would highly recommend you talk to your financial advisor about if it makes sense or not. Sometimes that has to do with the interest you're paying, has to do with the money that you have invested, and it has to do with your risk tolerance. So let's just say we put a little bit of money towards low interest loans. Sometimes your employer or your retirement plan has a non-deductible options for retirement plan contributions. Non-deductible, meaning how much money you can put in that you don't get a tax deduction today, but the money could grow tax-free. Or you can have a non-deductible IRA contribution. You put the money in and that money can grow without paying any taxes, and then you can do something with it towards your retirement later. Now, what's important to remember is that you remember or take a record of how much money you put in after tax. You need to track your cost basis on that. That's important. So when you separate from service and you roll that money into an IRA, if it's in a 401k, for example, part of that would go into a Roth IRA as part of your contributions, and the growth of that money would go into a pre-tax IRA. This can get a little complex, so make sure you talk to your financial advisor or your CPA. So what do you think's next? You got everything all in order, you did everything right, and now you still have money left over. That is when you do a taxable account. Now this could be an individual account, an individual brokerage firm account, or if you're married, you can have a joint account. A lot of times people have both. Depending on if you have an individual account or a joint account if you're married, really depends on your tax planning. Sometimes it makes sense to have an individual account if someone's a lot older, because the spouse can get a step up in cost basis if someone passes away. But this taxable account can be used for any and everything. But make sure you have your investments set up properly according to your goals, and you can put as much money as you want to in that thing. And that's really how wealthy people save money. They put it in a series of accounts to be very tax efficient, and then after that they maximize all of their cash flow and save it in other types of vehicles. Now, this could be investment property. This could be a joint account at a brokerage firm. This is all other types of investments. Now, what ends up happening if you need income for, let's say, health care expenses and emergency, where do you think that comes from? That comes from the cash account. After that, what do? You replenish your cash account. This cash account protects the other accounts from being forced to withdraw. But let's suppose, for instance, that you had a big expense, but you did fantastic with saving money. You may be able to take money from your taxable account to buy that second home or put a down payment on an investment property. And as you make more and more income throughout the years, you do the same thing. You put it in your 401k, you max it out now because you know you're going to get the match. You max it out. You avoid credit card debt altogether. And when you have this set up and you make income, you add in the appropriate account. And what you can do after that is just sit back, and if it's invested properly over time, obviously no guarantees, these account values will rise due to the investments they're in and bear fruit. Now, when you transition into retirement, instead of making income, you need this for retirement. And how do you fund your retirement? From all the hard work you did here. Your 401k, your HSA, 401k max. You may have already paid all your loans off. Your non-deductible IRA contributions. Remember to keep the cost basis in those. And your taxable accounts. And then determining how you generate income from those accounts. That's tax planning. Have a happy retirement.